The answer's justice. Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, The Batman. The Batman is 2 years into his role as Gotham's embodiment of vengeance, a nocturnal vigilante who strikes fear into the hearts of criminals, a reclusive scion of Gotham's richest family questioning his family's legacy. The world's greatest detective stalks the streets at night employing a lethal combination of mental mastery, physical strength, and expert technology on his journey to becoming the city's symbol of hope. A new Cape Crusader has come along from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Before we get a closer look at the Batman, though, let's bring in the ruler just to see how tall the figure stands. If I was to include the ears that stick out from his cowl, then the Batman here is 7.5 inches in height, or 19 centimeters tall. As for his accessories, though, Batman comes included with a trading card. I was surprised to actually see that they didn't use figure photography and didn't simply just take a photo of him posed differently and just slap that on the front of the card. Instead, rather, it looks like we're getting a scene pulled from the Batman movie. Although it's kind of strange, though, if you look at the shininess of his mask and his cape and his outfit, it kind of actually looks like Batman's been made out of CG than actually Robert Pattinson wearing the costume. I just found that a little bit strange. On the back of the card, though, it does tell you, for those that aren't too familiar, or the 411 on Batman, is that his real name is Bruce Wayne. Everybody can rest easy. There's also down below a paragraph read-up. You can either pause this and read it for yourself. It also happens to be the same read-up I did at the beginning of this review as well, if you wanted to hear that books on tape instead of having to read it for yourself. So it comes included with the trading card. That's not always a bad thing. We can put that to the side, and that's going to go along with the rest of my trading cards I've been collecting all this time. Batman, also something you can collect too, he comes included with a display stand. It's the same type of stand that we've got with the Mortal Kombat and Spawn, other lines that McFarlane Toys have produced. The only thing that they change differently is the branding down below here, the DC logo. I think it would have also been a nice opportunity for them to use the Batman logo done nicely in red, as opposed to just using the same standby DC logo. But I guess you could say it's part still of the DC multiverse, and more the reasoning why they would have used DC rather than actually the Batman logo. But I just thought it would be something different, a change of pace. Put that to the side. Now, just taking a bit of a calming break here. The figure also comes included with a grapple gun. Why are we going for such a moment of silence here for a second? Okay, let's talk about the positives. The grapple gun here is molded in all black plastic. And while I wouldn't say that's necessarily a positive point, it looks like it's a rather interesting looking grapple gun. Very similar maybe to kind of a cross between like the Arkham games and the '89 Batman, kind of the way it's been designed here. Unfortunately though, a couple of things wrong with this. It doesn't have any extra paint to it. It's just been molded in black plastic. But the biggest problem faces this grapple gun is the peg that you're seeing on the bottom of it. You probably just imagine that this is going to be somewhere that's going to clip on his utility belt. Yes and no. In fact, I'm going to just move Batman's hand out of the way here for a second. There is really a loop here that comes down just below one of his pockets that I guess technically you could take then the peg, and that fits into the loop. It's a little bit difficult. I had no real difficulty doing this earlier, and now, of course, while the camera's filming, just get that plugged in place. Bear with me. Bear with me. But that does plug in. I don't know why I'm having a difficult time doing it right now, but that does, take my word for it, does plug in here. And I guess you could plug it here as well, but I had it for the longest time actually just plugged into here. Why? I don't want to give up. I'm going to keep doing this until we get it right. Just put my finger through it. It doesn't really help that it's softer plastic either. If it was harder plastic, I'm sure I probably could easily have fitted in. And again, I promise you, I didn't have any anyways, it plugs in there. Just take my word for it. Plugs in right there. That's not a bad thing. The problem is, though, is when it comes to his hand. You may already notice, first of all, that Batman has a hand-shaking hand, which is sort of strange because Batman should really have gripping hands, kind of like this one he has right here. Problem is, you take the grapple gun, and in what I feel to be one of the most awkward ways to attach it to the figure's hand, you literally just palm it. You clip it on the side of his hand, and that's the way he's supposed to be shooting his grapple gun. Now, to play devil's advocate, I could argue the point that maybe if the grapple gun originally came from his gauntlet, let's just say this side of his gauntlet opens up, it's sort of like Data from the Goonies. This just folded out. Okay, I could say that. And then Batman doesn't really hold it as much as it just extends out from his arm, and then Batman fires it to see where he wants to go. Maybe that is a case of what it actually happens in the movie. We don't have that yet, material, at least from the film, that we can kind of go against and say, okay, yeah, doesn't happen in the movie, or yes, the guy that was behind the camera was right, it comes from his gauntlet. If it doesn't come from his gauntlet, though, Batman literally is just holding on to it by, gravity? He's just gluing it to his hand, I guess. I think what they could easily have done, I mean, just to show you how it does work, you can technically clip it or put it inside his other hand. Although it doesn't look like he's holding it like a grapple gun. It actually kind of looks like he's holding it like he just found it in the street somewhere. I mean, they really could have given us, I think, an other option. Between this and this, somewhere in the middle, I think they could have found a happy medium where you didn't literally have to take the grapple gun and clip it inside his hand like this. Because I think it looks so out of place. If you kind of have it to the side, where you're sort of concealing where it's supposed to be attached, it doesn't look as bad, but then you don't have hands. These fingers aren't looping around anything. So strange. If anything, I think they could have easily released this figure with an extra hand. First of all, I think he could have easily come included with a second gripping hand. So if you didn't want to have, for example, handshaking hand Batman. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. You could easily have just popped this out and replaced it with one of these. And then adding further to that, if we're not going to really be getting other weapons included with these figures, why not they just release another hand that was already molded around the grapple gun? If, again, assuming Batman does actually hold the grapple gun and it doesn't come out from his gauntlet. Somebody like a year from now, having already seen the film, will tell me down below, it came actually out of the gauntlet. You should have known that. Sorry, I didn't know that. Anyways, other than the fact he does have a flat hand, which looks so strange and out of place, getting a closer look now at Batman. I've been very adamant about my feelings of Robert Pattinson's Batman, more so about the way he's designed. It sort of looks like Gotham by Gaslight. I think that was the comic run where Batman sort of had the higher collar and looked a little similar like this. And I think that's sort of been where the inspiration has come from the new Batman movie, that and The Long Halloween. I gotta say, like, the figure has grown on me for the little bit of time I've had to actually have this in hand. While I still don't think I'm crazy about the design of Batman, I think, like, the figure is pretty good. It's got some really interesting stitch lines where you can kind of see that Batman would have sewn the cowl together maybe by hand. Even like the areas around his nose, for example, are outlined in that same stitching. It doesn't get any other color, but I guess it doesn't really need any extra color, at least from the cowl portion of things. His face is generally quite pale, but I think Robert Pattinson generally has pretty pale complexion to start off with. And I think to the credit of it, it's painted pretty good. As for the rest of his outfit, of course, he does have the higher collar, a cape that kind of comes out from the center area rather than further out into the shoulders. And then he has like the bat emblem, which apparently is made of the guns that were used to kill his parents. He just used that to make the actual symbol that's on his chest. That's kind of interesting, although it does make for a more intricately detailed bat emblem. And it looks kind of less like a bat emblem, and it just looks like two things that he put together on a costume. His outfit is generally all quite dark gray. I mean, there are a few little breakups of other colors. Like, for example, he's got these little darts, it seems, on the sides of his gauntlets that get a little bit of extra silver. But if not for that, it's really just the black gloves and the black utility belt that really does help to break up the coloring because there's a lot of gray happening here. He's got these larger shoulder pads. So, like, this is a Batman that has more of a SWAT-looking outfit than just a traditional-looking costume. So if you're not a big fan of bulkier-looking Batman that looks like he's wearing a SWAT suit, maybe then the Batman design may not be your personal favorite either. The cape is done pretty good. He doesn't have any real points. There's only really one point on either side, sort of bookending this middle section of cape. I almost feel like there should have been some points here as well. The cape is generally softer plastic. I actually looked around this figure when I first took him out of the packaging just to see if there was some other place that the grapple gun goes onto, and I couldn't find any extra hole. I'm going to go back to this. I really, I just wanted to show you. I'm not going crazy. I'm really not. This just clips into us. Ugh. Why do we go back? I've now committed myself to doing this. The college try. Let's get this actually. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. All of that, the time that I just wasted for everybody's lives right now, just to show you it clips. It might not even go in there in the first place. It might actually even just come out of his gauntlet. Anyways, it's there. Just remove that. Figure doesn't have really a lot of paint going for him. Most of it, I'm guessing, is probably just the molded gray plastic with just a few little key markers done in, like the painted black on the shoulders, the painted black emblem, utility belt. But like the lower legs sort of just keeps itself to that darker gunmetal gray, which isn't bad. But like the strapped areas, I think there could have been an opportunity made to add just a little bit extra paint, so it looks like it's not just molded plastic. Batman's boots are pretty good. I mean, you can see where the boots separate themselves. It looks like he has like sneakers on, and then he's got like a gauntlet, like a guard that goes over top of it. But it's not terrible. I gotta say, the more I'm seeing the trailer for the Batman, which I really wasn't liking the look of Batman initially, I think the latest one that probably at the time that I'm reviewing this right now was probably about 5 days ago with some additional Riddler footage. I actually gotta say, I'm liking kind of the look of Batman. I'm not loving it, but I'm liking it a little bit more than I did before. For the articulation on Batman now, his head rotates all the way around. Despite for the fact he does have the higher collar, it doesn't seem to impede any bit of the figure's movements. You can move the head up, down easily, and also back and forth too. Now, when it comes to his arms are tricky because what they've done is they've attached the shoulder pads here rather than further up. It becomes certainly more of an issue when it comes to bringing his arms upward, because you can kind of see it starts folding in the shoulder pads. Like they seem sort of really more out of place than anything else and more in the way. You can bring the arms out, but yeah, you can kind of see it starts crinkling up the shoulder pads. At least they're softer plastic. Arms can move forward and back fine. He does have a swivel in the bicep. Figure possesses also a double hinge on the elbow, so luckily he does have the option of patting himself on the back, thanks to handshaking Batman. Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hands rotate all the way around, both this one and this one here. Figure does have an upper torso ball joint. You can rotate that all the way around. And then further down from that, just above the utility belt, Batman has also a secondary ball joint. You can rotate that all the way around. Legs split out with a nice ratcheted joint. Can you hear that? I hope you can hear that. If not, that was good for nobody. Legs move forward and back, fine and good. You can rotate the top of the leg, kind of essentially where that attaches to the ball joint. Double hinge on the knee. He does have no articulation. I kind of would have thought his boots would have been separate, but it seems like they've been molded into the same lower part of his leg, and they've just gone in and painted it. As for the feet move up and down this way, and you can also ankle pivot them too, and the figure does also have toe articulation. So if you like toe articulation, this Batman's got it for you. Overall, not a bad looking figure. I kind of feel like I've been more sold on the costume based on the figure than I have so far in the movie, up to the last trailer. The last trailer just had some Joker footage. It had Catwoman saying something about, Batman says, you have a lot of cats, and she says, I like to collect strays. That footage is sort of now selling me on this now Batman movie, which I wasn't as interested in before, where I really didn't like the look of Robert Pattinson's Batman costume. I think sort of, again, like the look of this figure kind of has drawn me in a little more than it did before. And if it does look like this, from what little we've seen so far in the movie, if it does at least look like this, I think it's actually not a bad Batman costume. It's not my favorites. Please don't quote me on that. But I gotta say, like, it's growing on me a lot more than it did before. I was surprised, actually, how much I didn't dislike this figure. I sort of was just going in with the expectation of taking this guy out of his plastic prison, just immediately disliking it. But the little bit of time I've spent now looking at the figure in hand, moving the joints around, and looking at the accessories, which we'll talk more about in a second, I actually like the look of Batman here. Whether he's still going to look this good when we actually see him in the movie, I'm still sort of holding out hope that I'm actually going to enjoy this Batman movie. Everything I've said so far to viewers is, from what I've seen of the movie, it looks good. The only thing I'm not 100% sold on is Robert Pattinson, and I'm not sold on the suit of Batman. Now, if it looks at all like what we're getting here with the figure, which I gotta imagine it does, the costume isn't that bad. I don't love it as much as, say, Ben Affleck's Batman costume, but I gotta say, maybe it's growing a little bit more on me than it did before. Okay, let's talk about his accessories. Of the accessory he comes included with, because he really only technically comes in with one. He comes with a trading card and he comes with display stand. That's not an issue. It's the way he holds his grapple gun. If, first of all, you don't have the grapple gun in his hand, he's always going to have a permanent hand-shaking hand. Nice to meet you, Batman. Why couldn't they have just given him an alternate hand that if you didn't want to have a flat palm Batman, you could easily just pop that out and replaced it instead with a gripping hand? But then for him to hold the grapple gun like this. I guess their intended idea was you could have the grapple gun as a loose accessory. But if really this is what you can do with the Batman anyways, of him holding the accessory, why didn't they just include a secondary hand that already had the grapple gun molded? Because it doesn't look like he's holding it. I don't see any fingers wrapped around the handle. What I'm seeing is Batman somehow using the power of magic to hold the grapple gun in his hand. Other than that, though, nice looking figure. Don't like the way he's handling the grapple gun, but I do like the way that Batman is produced here by McFarlane Toys. He ended up being, again, a nicer figure than what I was really expecting. Now, one good thing is I have picked up a lot of these Batman figures as of late, so not only have we wrapped up things with Batman, it's not at the end of it. We are still going to be having a look at Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman, and a whole bunch of other Batman figures. So if you guys did want to see more of this line, make sure you keep your peepers peeled to his channel. And of course, if you are enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notification so you get those friendly reminders of whenever new videos are going to be popping up. And yeah, as mentioned, keep your peepers peeled. Even though we have wrapped up things with Batman for at least this video, I'm sure he's probably going to be coming back as we're doing comparisons with the rest of the Batman lineup, produced by the folks over at McFarlane Toys. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.